Greetings and salutations. It is Dave Duford here at Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com. And in today's video, I'm going to be answering the oft asked question: how much money can a final expense agent make selling final expense? This video is going to be different than some of the other videos on YouTube that you've seen. Most of them are pretty brief in their explanations. They don't offer a lot of details and analysis behind their claims, and I don't think do a good enough job. If you know and watch my videos, you know I'm, if anything, overly detailed. But the reason I am is because when you get involved in any kind of career change, if you're thinking about going into final expense, this is a business, and you need to know what to expect under certain circumstances as to what your income opportunity realistically is. You need to know what it takes to be successful, and you need to know what really goes behind the scenes when you get into a final expense business, and what you can and pro forma and expect in your business. So the purpose of this video is to satisfy that in an extremely detailed way. If you're have attention deficit disorder, I apologize. This video is not for you. This video is for the person that wants to know every little bit of detail that they can and can stay with me for a good bit to get all of that details to make the decision if final expense really is the business to be in for themselves to accomplish their income goals. So, starting from the top of my notes here, there's a couple of primers here that I want to make sure that you understand. Again, that are usually brushed over, aren't really discussed in the process of, hey, if you're interested, you're looking at an agency, they want to recruit you, you've got a pulse, or you like to drink the Kool-Aid, something like that, but you don't seem to get all the information. So let's talk about these primers here and get this out of the way. So first thing, gross versus net. All right, I'm not talking about something nasty or what you throw in the water to get fish. I'm talking about financials. What is the difference between gross and net? So gross is what you take home from commissions, from production. Net is what you're left over after you pay for the cost of conducting that business, all right? So if you're new to this business, it's likely, final expense that is, you're going to be paying for some sort of way to develop business, okay? What I mean by that is you can buy leads, all right? So when somebody says, I wrote $5,000 in business, that's not $5,000 in their bank account, all right? There's a lot of other things in between what's actually in their back pocket that they can spend as cash money versus what they bring home as far as their ultimate production. It's important to understand the distinction here because ultimately what really matters in this business is what's in your pocket after you pay for the right to do the business, right? So that's what I'm going to be focusing on because that's what really matters, okay? And to get to that number, we've got to take a few more steps to figure out what it takes to get to that point as far as the other numbers involved. Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about expenses. That's built into this. That is the in-between point between gross, net is the expenses. So we're going to talk about different expenses as it relates to final expense and what you can expect when you have expenses and how to manage that to get to your net so you know what you are actually taking home. The last point is ratios, all right? So in final expense or any insurance or any sales business, right, you need to know what your numbers are. You don't have to be down to a science, but you need to generally know, are you closing 20%, 25% of your business? How many appointments does it take? What's your closing ratio off of each of your appointments? How many appointments do you book off of each of your leads? These are going to determine what you can anticipate on a consistent basis. Now, it's not a perfect science because commission, it's a 100% commission business. You wake up unemployed every morning. Some weeks you'll have great success. Some weeks suck. And you're going to have ups and downs because that's just the nature of any kind of job where you don't have a wage. So you got to understand that too. So this is all algorithmic. It's all equation X plus Y equals Z stuff. But in the application of this knowledge, you're going to have variations. Okay, so it's important to understand that too. But your ratios help provide confidence behind what you can expect long term, because ultimately there's a lot of variation day to day, week to week, even month to month, but quarter to quarter, year to year tends to smooth out a little bit more. And that's truly where the difference is going to be between somebody who's successful and not. Okay, so now that we talked about that, the last thing I'll mention here before we start putting it all together is that you've got really three things to consider when you're thinking about what's possible for you. And I'll categorize them as below average agent, a good agent, and then a great agent, okay? So we'll kind of differentiate as we talk about the numbers involved to determine what you can make. So you can kind of categorize yourself as saying, okay, if I'm a below average agent, here's what I'll do. If I'm average or good, here's what I'll get. And if I'm great, if I'm exceptional and an outlier, here's what's possible. So I want to give you a couple of different examples that are realistic. Most of you will be either, hopefully you'll be average or better, but most of you probably be average or below average, hopefully with most being average, because the great agents are truly few and far between. They're 5% of the agent population or less. Okay, so what are we concerned about as we put all this together? So the first thing we want to know to determine what your ultimate earning capabilities are is what your presentation to lead volume is, okay? So I just got done with another video. Maybe you've already saw it. Hope you did. We did the how to write $10,000 in life insurance business. So I'm going to put you over to my screen here and just kind of demonstrate to you what I'm seeing on the screen. What you see here is different ratios as it relates to your business. We'll erase this one because it doesn't make sense. But we see an average case size. We see the presentation to leads ratio. And for the sake of what we're talking about now is how many presentations we get to each lead as a percentage. So this is 50%, which means if we purchase 20 leads a week, which the cost we'll consider will be $610, okay? So I'm doing all this on the fly, is $610, all right? So we're paying $610 for 20 leads, and we're setting half of those. This is the first metric we've got to be concerned with. But this basically tells you is out of how many leads you buy, how many appointments you're getting. In this case, it'll be 10%. And the next thing next metric to be concerned with is the average case size. And final expense, that will range between around $500 to $600. This could be better, it could be worse. I say $600 because it's average, all right? And what you're seeing here is essentially an average ratio. Next, we're going to look at a lapse ratio, which is 20%. That is what I would consider to be average, which means out of every 10 applications, 20% falls off the books sometime between the policy being issued and the completion of month 12. So you write 100 deals, 20 are going to fall off. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. The next is commission percentage. All right. So again, this makes a big difference, of course, what you're getting paid. And in this case, we're just going to put down 100% for the sake of math. It helps out tremendously when we're trying to derive what we're taking. The other aspect is what your advance ratios are. So let's put that down. The advance here, most of the time, most of you guys will have a 75% advance. That means you'll get 75% of your first year commission either when the policy is issued or after the first draft is paid or first draft is taken from the client. Let's see what else. Advancing ROI. ROI is going to be a big takeaway. We'll get to that later. But what we're looking at here in the screen is a sample example of what to expect as you get into this business and what it costs to run. So let's take a look and walk through an average agent about what they can expect. They write $600. 20% of it falls off in the first year. So that means if we extract 120, so 60 times 20% is 120, that means 480 and premium is left over. We know that there's a commission rate of 100%. That means they'll get paid over the first year $480. We also know that they were going to get 75% of that. So if we multiply 480 times 0.75, that gives us $360 upfront cash money that we get as an advance. Hopefully you're still with me. So you're going to get the other 120 in months 10, 11, 12, but right now you're going to get 360. This is the most important number to be concerned with. Why? Because cash flow is king in this business. You got to have cash flow to pay for leads. And this is the biggest number you got to control for and make sure you manage well. Okay, so our average case that we actually get in cash money up front within the first, call it 30 days or less, is $360. Now, 20 leads helps us close for 10 appointments, of which we close 5 deals. So we get 5 deals out of this deal, all right? And then we multiply that by 360, right? So 5 closed deals multiplied by an average cash advance after lapse rate of $360 gives us $1,800, all right? Now we subtract our cost of doing business, primarily as leads, and that leaves us with $1,190. I think that's right, in net income. Now, this is net before taxes. This is net before Let's see what else. This is net before travel expenses, gas, that kind of thing. So at a ratio, and this is good. It's not great. It's not bad. But this is what I would consider a good agent to be working with under these kind of ratios. So $11.90 is what the weekly take home would be for approximately $4,900 before travel expenses. So deduct a couple hundred extra dollars. You're making about $4,600, $4,700 a month. Let's call it $4,500 just to be conservative. Now, in months 10, 11, 12, you still have another $40 each month on average coming in, right? So you'll get additional monies that you haven't experienced. So what will that difference be over the next the last 3 months of the year? So 120 times 5. Let's see what that number is. I think it's 600, right? Times 6, 720. Excuse me. That's actually 5. Take that back. So you'll get, starting then, an average case of $600 a week of 5 deals if you write a week, which will add in for another $2,400. And this is after, if you consistently do this, this is what you'll get later on. So you'll have another $2,400 coming in exactly a year later if you write this kind of production, for a total of $6,900 in production. So again, it takes 9-10 months before you start seeing this in, of course, because you don't get paid on this business until it's still on the books and it pays as earned. So what you're looking at realistically is somewhere between $6,500 and $7,000 a month in earnings before taxes, earnings before well, that did account for travel expenses. So somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000, which I would estimate to be about a $60,000 to $80,000 income before taxes, as being what could be expected from a good agent on a order of 25 leads. So hopefully I have covered everything that's necessary here to understand the difference. Now, you may be wondering, okay, Dave, I like what I see. $60,000 to $80,000 is good. Well, what happens if I want to do more than just $60,000 or $70,000 a year? And I'm glad you asked, because there are a few things that you can cover in order to improve this number. So first thing is you can improve your commission ratio. So in my business, most of my agents start at between 100 and 110% that are brand new, because in exchange, I offer them training, consultation, connection to me. When they've got questions, they access me and I can help them out, write more business. After a period of time, they go up between 110 and 120% for most contracts. Guaranteed issue pays a little less. So if your average commission rate goes from 100% to 110%, that's a 10% increase in your business just on that. So if you're writing, if you're taking home $80,000 a year, now you're taking home $88,000 a year. So, and the thing is if you're getting tremendously paid less than this, as a lot of you guys listening are, it's cutting into your business tremendously. If you write these same numbers on a 70% contract and you write $80,000 a year, you're subtract $20,000 for $24,000, 8, 16, 24. That's crazy. So you're only making what, $56,000 a year, which is good, but not as good as it could be for exactly the same thing. That is a whole nother discussion, but that's the point. Is you can increase your commission up to a point to make sure that you're maximizing your take-home pay, especially after you've developed experience, you know what you're doing, and you've basically earned the right to have maximal commission. What else can you do here? So you can also increase your closing ratios. Okay, so the way that you make more money is maybe instead of closing 50% of your presentations, close 60%. All right, you write an extra app a week. And if our take-home pay is $360 in cash flow, or $480 for the year, that's an additional almost $2,000 a month in take-home pay by just increasing your closing percentage 10%. You add in on top of that an increase of 10% in your income, that's even better. So you can see how you can start multiplying the ability to take home more money without necessarily having to do the next thing, which is buy more leads. In fact, this is the most common way to elevate your capability to sell more final expense. In my last video, I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to convince you that the secret to selling a lot of final expense is not learning how to be some kind of savant where you sell 3 or 4 out of every of your leads really consistently. That's really tough to do. But it's instead to get a good enough overall, even average to good closing ratio, average to good ratios and all the things I've mentioned, but then scaling up to buy more leads and just run your business in overdrive, running 30 plus appointments a week to hit those production goals. So this is something that is attainable. It is something you can do. You just have to be willing to play the numbers in your favor. Now, at the end of the day, but beyond looking at all these numbers and showing you the backgrounds on the different ratios and aspects that really make a difference, there is one number, really just one number, that matters more than anything else here, and that is your return on investment. What that means is that for every dollar that you pay to do business, what do you get back in the form of revenue? So in this case, in this business, what I'm ultimately looking for my agents that work with me in my mentorship program at Final Expense Agent Mentor is I ideally, over a first year commission period of time, I want them to be writing $4 in revenue or $4 in commission for every dollar that they put into their business, ideally. Sometimes even 3 to 1 is acceptable. It's a little too close for me on the line there. It's probably something they could do better, like work harder or slightly improve their closing and sales techniques. But in most cases, 4 to 1 is all you need. Here's how I would explain it in layman's terms. Would you take 50 grand to bring home $200,000? If I could show you a way to do that, would you do that? Of course you would. Under certain circumstances, there may be some limitations there. But just for the sake of understanding, if you give me 100 grand and I'll show you how to take home 400,000, would you do that? Absolutely. That's how final expense is. That's how you can become a top producing, high commission producing final expense agent, is to leverage those numbers to get to that point on a smaller basis and then start to scale up step by step and eventually scale into a big monster type of production system where you're running a lot of appointments, seeing a lot of people, outsourcing different aspects of your business, and really being able to hit the $100,000, $200,000 a year net income range that is definitely possible in this business with enough consistency and enough hard work and enough of a business model like what I've described to help you do that. So that is hopefully a good answer in more detail with more reality to what it takes to sell or how much you can make in the final expense business. An average agent is what I would expect is a $60,000 to $80,000 income with the opportunity to double, even triple that. When you look at the source of how to improve your game as it relates to your sales training, your techniques, and as well as scaling your business model up to bring in more leads, it's absolutely possible if you only believe it and put your mind to it to make it happen. If you have any comments or questions, I invite you to leave them below. If there's anything I can clarify in this video, I think I've covered everything. I don't want to be perceived as not covering something. So if there's something I need to discuss more in depth, please leave a comment below. I'll be happy to further clarify it as best as possible, because the goal of this video is to give a realistic perspective of what you could happen. Certainly one thing that could happen, maybe I didn't discuss, is that these numbers could be out of whack. You could be below average and you won't make much, okay? You could have bad weeks, okay? Again, I've tried to explain that up front. This is an algorithm. This is just a basic expectation. It could be a lot worse. It's just the reality of the business. There's ups and downs. There's some areas that are better to work than others. There's some agents that are better than others, and you ultimately don't know until you give it a try, but this is a good concept of what to expect on a basic basis. My name is Dave Duford at Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com, where I help agents like you succeed in selling final expense. And I'll leave you with this. If you haven't picked up the best, most awesomest book ever in the world, it's called The Official Guide to Selling Final Expense. As you can see, yours truly down here wrote the book. You can find it on Amazon. Go to my website and buy the ebook format if you prefer that. The book goes into a deep dive of all the different aspects of selling, training, carriers, and scripts, and everything necessary to sell final expense successfully, from prospecting, presenting, and closing. Everything you can imagine. Buy your book today while you still can. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care.